America is a land filled with mysteries, and among its many secrets lies a haunting truth. The nation is home to some of the most terrifying, ghostly locations in the world. From forgotten graveyards to historic battlegrounds, these places are steeped in blood, loss, and tragedy, echoing the souls of the past. Tonight, we embark on a journey through America's most haunted places, each with a chilling story to tell, and perhaps a restless spirit lurking in the shadows. Grab hold of your seat and prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown. This is the story of America's most haunted places. Hauntings are as old as the land itself. Before the stories were captured on film or written in books, they were whispered around campfires and passed down through generations. From the colonial era, the supernatural has been woven into the fabric of American folklore. It's said that the spirits of those who perished in violent and untimely ways never truly left the world of the living. Take, for example, Salem, Massachusetts, home to one of the most infamous witch trials in history. In 1692, 20 people were executed for supposedly practicing witchcraft. Today, their spirits are said to linger, restless and tormented by the injustice they suffered. Visitors report chilling encounters, whispers in the dark, footsteps in the halls of old houses, and eerie, cold spots that make even the bravest souls shiver. And then there is the Gettysburg battlefield in Pennsylvania, where one of the bloodiest battles of the American Civil War unfolded in 1863. Over 50,000 soldiers lost their lives here. The ground is soaked in blood, and the echoes of war still haunt this sacred land. Visitors report seeing shadowy figures walking the fields and hearing the distant sound of cannon fire in the stillness of the night. Across the country, abandoned hospitals, decrepit asylums, and dilapidated prisons hold secrets of forgotten lives. But not all hauntings are ancient history. Some are deeply rooted in modern tragedy, like the chilling stories that continue to emerge from places where the echoes of suffering never quite fade. Now, let's dive deeper into the 5 most haunted places in America. These are the locations where the past refuses to rest, and the spirits of those long gone refuse to leave. At number 1, we have the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. Known as the inspiration for Stephen King's The Shining, this majestic hotel is more than just the setting for a fictional story. For years, staff and guests alike have reported hearing ghostly piano music in empty rooms, strange shadows moving along the halls, and a mysterious, overwhelming feeling of being watched. The most famous spirit is that of Mrs. Stanley herself, who, legend says, still roams the hallways, overseeing her hotel. Next, we travel south to St. Francisville, Louisiana, where the Myrtles Plantation stands, said to be one of the most haunted places in America. The legend of Chloe, a former slave who was allegedly poisoned by her mistress, haunts this plantation. Guests report seeing a ghostly woman in a green turban wandering the grounds, and even the faint sound of children laughing, though no children reside there. At number 3, we have Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia. Once one of the most famous prisons in the world, Eastern State is now known for its terrifying ghost stories. Former inmates, subjected to harsh conditions and isolation, are believed to still wander the dark, crumbling halls. Visitors have reported hearing distant cries, the clanging of prison doors, and ghostly figures in the shadows. Some believe the restless spirits of the prisoners still haunt this forsaken place. Next, we set sail to the Queen Mary, a retired British ocean liner now moored in Long Beach, California. During its time as a passenger ship, the Queen Mary was the scene of tragic deaths, both during World War II and in its final years of operation. Today, the ship is notorious for its paranormal activity. Visitors report hearing children's laughter in empty corridors, and some claim to have witnessed the ghost of a former sailor who died aboard the ship. The Queen Mary is truly a ship filled with stories and ghosts. Last but certainly not least, we arrive at the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California. Built by Sarah Winchester, the widow of the inventor of the famous rifle, this sprawling mansion is a maze of doors that lead to walls and staircases that go nowhere. Legend has it that Sarah Winchester believed she was haunted by the ghosts of those killed by her husband's invention, and she built the house to appease them. Today, visitors say the spirits she tried to evade still haunt the house, with eerie footsteps heard in the night and doors opening on their own. So what makes a place haunted? Is it the spirits of the past lingering in the shadows, or is it something more? Many believe hauntings are tied to tragedy, lost souls trapped in time, unable to find peace. Others think that certain locations, saturated with negative energy, become a beacon for the supernatural. But no matter the reason, one thing is clear: the unexplained occurrences in these haunted places are real enough to cause fear. While many are skeptical about the existence of spirits, modern paranormal investigations rely on scientific methods. Electromagnetic field (EMF) detectors, thermal imaging cameras, and audio recorders are used to capture anomalies, cold spots, strange noises, and unexplained energy fluctuations. But the question remains: can science truly explain the unexplained, or is there something more to these paranormal experiences? We want to hear from you. Have you ever encountered something supernatural in your own life? Do you believe in ghosts, or do you think there's a logical explanation for what many consider paranormal? Share your experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more chilling stories, paranormal investigations, and an exploration of haunted places across America. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your mind sharp. Have you ever been sitting in the comfort of your own home, enjoying a quiet dinner or perhaps a moment of peace, only to sense someone or something unnervingly close? A feeling that you're not alone, even though no one else is around. You turn, and there it is, an uninvited guest. A ghostly presence that wasn't part of your plans, a shadow from the past that appears unexpectedly. The kind of visitor who doesn't knock, who doesn't announce their arrival, but instead simply sits down, as if they've been waiting all along. Across the world, countless stories are told of spirits who appear as unexpected guests, ghosts who have no place at the table, yet make their presence known in the most unsettling ways. What drives these spirits to visit, and why do they linger in places where they are not wanted? In tonight's tale, we delve into some of the most chilling encounters with uninvited guests, spirits who wander the rooms and corridors, leaving residents disturbed and desperate for answers. Imagine a family enjoying a quiet dinner in their old Victorian home. The table is set, food is served, and the laughter of children fills the air. But as the family sits down, a cold breeze sweeps through the room, extinguishing the candles. The air grows heavy. They look around, but no one has moved. Suddenly, the sound of a chair scraping across the floor breaks the tension. An empty chair slides back, as though someone has just sat down, someone who wasn't invited. The family freezes, glancing nervously at one another. A feeling of dread creeps in. Who is this mysterious guest who has joined them? No one saw anyone enter. No one heard a door open. And yet, here they are, sitting at the table, as though they belong. The family tries to ignore the chill in the air, hoping it's just their imagination. But the unsettling presence refuses to be ignored. As the evening continues, the figure remains, silent and still, yet undeniably present. Was it the spirit of a long-lost relative, lingering in the place they once loved? Or perhaps something far darker, an entity bound to the house by some unknown force? No matter the explanation, the family couldn't shake the feeling that they were never truly alone, no matter how many chairs were left empty at the table. Not all uninvited guests appear at dinner tables. Sometimes they wander through the living room, making their presence known in a more subtle way. Take the story of the Johnson family, who moved into a charming, cozy house on the outskirts of town. At first, the house was everything they had dreamed of, a fresh start, a place to build memories. But it didn't take long for them to realize that they weren't the only ones living there. Late one night, as the family settled in for the evening, they heard soft footsteps from a hallway. Thinking it was a family member, they ignored it, but when the footsteps grew louder, they looked around. No one was there. The next night, the same thing happened again. And the next. At first, it was nothing more than an unsettling noise in the distance. But then they began to see it. A shadow moving just outside the corner of their vision, lingering at the doorway. The family couldn't explain it. It wasn't a person, not in the traditional sense. It didn't walk like a human. It glided, shifting between light and darkness as if it were neither entirely solid nor completely ethereal. Most disturbing of all was the feeling that it didn't belong, that it had been waiting for something or someone. The Johnsons were terrified. Every time they turned to look, the shadow was gone, but they could feel it, always just out of sight, watching them, waiting for them to acknowledge its presence. Sometimes the uninvited guest doesn't even need to be seen to make their presence felt. Take the haunting story of Margaret, a widow living alone in a house she had inherited from her late husband. At first, she found solace in the house, reliving memories of their life together. But things soon took a turn for the worse. Late one night, As Margaret sat alone in the living room, she felt a sudden chill wash over her. Her heart raced as she turned toward the rocking chair, only to see it move by itself, gently swaying in the air, as if someone had just gotten up from it. At first, she dismissed it as a draft or her imagination playing tricks on her. But the next night, the same thing happened, and then again the night after that. It was always the same. She would enter the room, and the chair would be rocking softly, as though someone had been sitting there. Margaret tried to reach out to a local historian, hoping to learn more about the house's past. What she discovered sent chills down her spine. The house had once belonged to a woman named Eleanor, a woman who had tragically died in the very room Margaret now occupied. It was said that Eleanor had waited for her husband, who never returned from war. She spent her final days in that very room, hoping and praying for his return. And when he never came back, Eleanor died alone, her heart broken. Margaret soon realized that Eleanor hadn't left. The presence that she felt in the room wasn't a fleeting moment. It was a ghostly attachment to the place, a longing for the love that was never returned. Margaret was now an uninvited guest in Eleanor's life, a visitor in a space that once belonged to another. Even in the modern world, uninvited guests continue to appear. These spirits aren't bound by time or place. They exist in the spaces where the living still walk. The story of Laura and Ben, a couple who moved into a new apartment in a busy city, is a chilling reminder of that. At first, Laura and Ben loved the apartment. It was spacious, beautifully decorated, and had a view of the city skyline. But shortly after they moved in, strange things began to happen. One evening, as they were watching TV, they both heard the sound of footsteps from a hallway. Slow, deliberate steps that grew louder as they moved closer to their apartment door. They assumed it was their neighbor, but when they opened the door, no one was there. No one was in the hallway. The footsteps continued, and sometimes they would even hear the sound of furniture shifting in the apartment, as though someone else was moving about. A cold draft would sweep through the room, and the unmistakable scent of perfume, old vintage, would linger in the air. After doing some research, they discovered that the apartment had once belonged to a woman named Margaret, who had lived there alone for decades. She had been a widow, much like Eleanor, and had passed away in the very same apartment. Her spirit, like those before her, seemed to remain, an uninvited guest, wandering through the halls and rooms of the apartment that she had once called home. So, why do these uninvited guests appear? Why do spirits, long passed from the world of the living, return to places where they were once happiest or most tragic? Some believe it's the intense emotions tied to a place, love, grief, regret, that keeps spirits bound to their former homes. Others suggest that these apparitions are simply caught in an endless loop, reliving moments from their pasts, unaware of the passage of time. And for some, their presence is simply a warning, a message that the living need to hear, a plea for something left unfinished. Uninvited guests, ghosts who wander, who sit at your table, who fill the rooms you thought you knew so well. They are a reminder that some spaces are never truly ours to occupy, and that sometimes the past refuses to stay buried. If you ever hear footsteps or feel the presence of someone who should not be there, remember, they may be just as lost as we are. Thank you for joining us on this eerie journey. If you've ever had an encounter with an uninvited guest, share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with anyone who might need a reminder that some visitors never leave. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay safe, and always be aware of who or what might be sitting at your table.